Neville Goddard, 1965 lectures. Teach Us to Pray, November 26, 1965. Tonight, it is Teach Us to Pray. You'll find this the most practical evening. That means he's about to show us the money. We're told he was praying in a certain place, but when he seized, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray." Then he tells a story. He told them a parable to the effect that we ought always to pray and not lose heart. Then he tells the parable, in a certain city, there was a judge who neither feared God nor regarded man. And in that city, there was a widow who came to him constantly and said to him, "Vindicate me against my adversaries." And although he did not fear God nor regard man, he said to himself, "I will vindicate her because she comes constantly and bothers me. And by her continual coming, she'll wear me out." Luke 18:3. So we see in this parable the central jet of truth is persistency. Anyone can learn a prayer, but it won't be effective. Anyone can learn a prayer, but it won't be effective. You can learn all the prayers in the world, and they will not in any way produce the results you seek. Let's figure this one out. Effective prayer in the real sense is an art. And to learn an art always requires a careful method and persistent practice. We just reached the sum of the cause of most of our problems when we complain that we aren't seeing the results in the world of what we have been focusing on. You just said it in the sentence. Anyone can learn a prayer, but it won't be effective. You can learn all the prayers in the world, and they will not in any way produce the results you seek. Effective prayer, in the real sense, is an art. And to learn an art always, doesn't matter what it is. You learned how to walk with the following. Always requires a careful method and persistent practice. Now, you weren't so careful when you learned how to walk, but you persistently practiced. Your mother and father picked you up every time you fell. So tonight, this is going to be a good one. We will show you what one lady, she isn't here tonight, but she gave me a series of stories based upon her technique. Let me now tell you something about the lady. She works, oh, I know who this is. She works for the telephone company. I'm going to let it be a surprise. In fact, all of her life, she's been there. So she went in as a long distance operator and worked her way up to the chief operator. Now she's superintendent. Now, I've not read this lecture before, but I know exactly who he's talking about. This is going to be a good one. But she trained herself to hear a voice. Even if the voice wasn't there, she could actually hear it just as though the voice is speaking. It became so much a part of her that she can really hear what she wants to hear. So here in her office, an operator, she has a son, Kenneth, and Kenneth wanted to be a flyer, a jet flyer. Well, he was turned down by United, by TWA, by American, by all of them as too small. His arms weren't long enough. Now, I could be wrong. And this is going to be a revelation for both of us, because this is a very, very good example of using the law. He was turned down by United, TWA, by American, all of them as too small. His arms weren't long enough. So she said to Kenneth, "Get on the telephone and you phone me. And you tell me over the phone that you're flying jets and it's wonderful. I will not answer. You just tell me that so I can hear your voice and I will hang up." So he got on the phone and called her and told her that I'm flying jets and it's perfectly marvelous, wonderful. She did exactly what she told him she would do. She hung up. Well, someone gave him a pass to Miami. So when he got to Miami, he was employed by Eastern Airlines. They trained him. He's now flying jets. Before that, the mother thought I should send him to school, to some engineering school, prepare him in some way. Well, no preparation, just someone gave him pass. He goes to Miami. He's flying for Eastern. He called her on the wire. He said, I want a lovely home in a nice neighborhood. For those of you who are not familiar with that phrase, it's new to me too, because it was before my time. Calling somebody on the wire means on the phone. This was something I would have heard my parents say as well. It's just when the phone came out in the beginning, it was a wire. It was a new thing in the house, on the wire. What a fascinating thing. And my grandpa's house, there was that phone you pick up the earpiece. I believe that was where I saw it. Oh my gosh. Just in my life, what I've seen, the wire is the telephone. He called her on the wire. He said, I want a lovely home in a nice neighborhood. Then she hung up. Not I want. She had to reverse that and say, I have a lovely home in a perfectly marvelous neighborhood, and I have a sports car. She simply, after she found out, she tuned him in, heard the same voice declaring that he has a lovely home and a sports car. Well, he has it right on the golf course. She said on the telephone, owns on the golf course, all within 4 months. The mother one day in the office said to her, I want to sell Kenneth's Jeep. He's gone now, so I want to sell the Jeep. She said, now, that's not the way we do it. Isn't it wonderful? I've sold the Jeep at a wonderful price. Exclamation point, end quote. 2 weeks later in the office, as I walked by, she said to me at the desk, isn't it wonderful? I've sold the Jeep at a wonderful price. I said to myself, does she want me to hear it again? I've heard it. But during the coffee break, as she came out, I said, did you really sell the Jeep? She said, yes, I sold the Jeep. I sold it at the same price I paid it. I sold it for the same price I paid for it years ago. He used it for 5 years, and we got the same price for it that I paid for it years ago. So I call that a good price. Exclamation point. This one now, you can pass judgment if you want to. Were I this lady, I would say to this one, do not tempt God. For there are people in this world who would try to make you feel you are responsible for them forever and forever. This lady said to her, I have no money and just an old car. I would like a new car. So I said, I'll just change that whole picture and you will tell me that you have a new car. 5 days later, she has a new Impala. But she tells my friend that it would have happened anyway. It's exactly how it feels when it happens. It feels so natural and so normal, and all the people step in right at the right places, and it just feels totally normal, totally natural. It would have happened anyway. You didn't do it. Although she asked my friend to hear it. She asked my friend to hear it. And her hearing here is imagining lovingly. But you didn't do it. Then she said to her, now I'm going to test you. See this ticket? This is an Irish sweepstakes ticket. This is a winning ticket. This ticket won. Well, when the tickets were drawn, it won $280. This lady goes through the ceiling because she didn't win the $150,000 and balls my friend out. My friend had made a little more and wrote the whole thing out, and she had underscored the word this. This ticket won. Well, it did. That ticket won. It won $280. She paid practically nothing for it, but she was annoyed at my friend because she didn't push it up to $150,000. So she gave me 11 of these stories, all perfectly marvelous. One lady said to her, and I know this lady well, and I know her husband well. She said, "Tell me, what do you want, Mildred? Tell me as though you had it. Don't tell me what you want, but tell me really what you want. But you clothe it so that you're telling me that you have it, the wish fulfilled." She calls my friend Holly. She said, "Holly, I went to Las Vegas and I married the most wonderful man." This is October the 10th. On November the 15th, she went to Las Vegas and she married, in her own eyes, the most wonderful man. So that's one, all through her hearing. Now, when I have to interject, because when I do my imaginings lovingly for people that are standing on the edge of the freeway with the sign, or on the corner of the street, says anything will help, etc. And when I see their face, then I can imagine that face smile. Then I can imagine what the voice. I can literally hear the voice, literally, in my mind's ear. I can hear the voice. I can see the smile. I can feel the hug. I can feel the high five. Almost all my senses. What do I got? I can see him. That's here. Now, I don't usually revert to this one, considering the circumstance. For those of you who understand, you understand. But I do hear them. I see them. And I can use this one in the future, but I never considered using it. It's just not a strength of mine. I never thought to use that one, to be honest with you. Of course, then I touch because I'm high-fiving or I am hugging. I'm not afraid to hug. I love hugging. I'm using sight. I'm using sound. I'm using touch. The only thing I'm not using is the sense of smell, but I can do that. It just seems funny. So the hearing is an actual easy thing to some people. Maybe some people it's not. I don't know, but I would think it'd be natural to hear your friend telling you something because you've heard their voice so many times before, or hearing your mate, your wife, your husband, or hearing your parents, your brother, your sister, because those voices are already kind of programmed in there. Another one, I gave this lady away last June. She called me up and asked me to play the part of her father. So I said, all right, when? On the 9th of June. So I went to the church and brought my daughter down and gave her away. So the day before, a friend called who was coming to the wedding service, and I said, what do you want? She said, well, I would like to get married, blank space, security, to a very, very wealthy man. Now this is June 8th. Holly said, go into my church and do today what you're going to do tomorrow. Blank space, going to walk down on the arm of Neville, and he's going to give me away, but now Neville isn't here. You take your imaginary hand and feel the texture of the dress you're going to wear, and whether it's be lace or satin or anything of your choice. Just simply walk down the aisle. Didn't hear from her till the 15th of this month, and she writes, Holly, I'm engaged to a millionaire, and I want to get married in your church. The same church that in my imagination, I walked down feeling the dress I would wear. Imagination. Marrying a millionaire. There was a commenter in one of the lives, or I think it was one of the lives, someone said, I want to be married in a secure relationship. And that's what the person wanted. It was a female, wanted to be married to a man and be secure. There's nothing wrong with that desire. This desire has been going on since the beginning of time. There's nothing wrong with that desire. It doesn't matter if, as the female or the male, which one is going to be secure or not secure. In today's world, both parties work. In this era, typically the men worked. It was a different era where the man worked and the woman was provided for. It was a lot different than today, considering all things like inflation and things like pricing and things like cost of this, that, and the other. Our imagination has no limit, so let's don't even go there on that point. But it's okay to want and desire that security through marriage. It's fine. Your imagination doesn't have a boundary. There's no right or wrong put on that. So that was a great success story. But what I'm getting at today is Holly's ability to hear. She's hearing here, excuse me. Here is in there. Blake made the statement, man has no body distinct from his soul. That called body is a portion of the soul discerned by the five senses, the chief inlets of the soul in this age. Well, there are five. She is simply cultivating hearing. To me, hearing is a strong one. You can speak to her now, and then you can leave, and then you can just leave the room. She has recorded the sound of your voice. Once you speak to her, she's recorded it. And hearing it, she drops it. So Blake made the statement, "Oh, what have I said? What have I done? Oh, all powerful human words." Very, very powerful. So she simply takes a person's request, but she turns it around, and it's not a request anymore. You're simply making a confession that what you wanted, you have. She doesn't do anything to make it come to pass. She simply lets it come to pass. Here is one with her husband. She is a minister, and he said to her, "Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if I had the church painted and new chandeliers?" Now he hasn't her training. He's a lovely fellow, a wonderful fellow, but a bit emotional. He can't quite control the imagination of his. He goes completely blank space, but Holly can control it. So she said to him, "Now you tell me in your own way what you would tell me if it were painted and the new chandeliers and all paid for." It's a very, very practical and excellent technique. Take notes now. I will repeat the sentence. She said to him, "Now you tell me in your own way what you would tell me if it were painted and the new chandeliers and all paid for." That's really what he wanted, all paid for. So he said to her, "Honey, isn't it wonderful? The church is completely painted and we have new chandeliers and everything is paid for." She said, "Within a matter of 2 months, Neville, we had the church painted, new chandeliers, and all was paid for, all on him." So here, this is an art. This is an art. I learned to play guitar starting at age 14. What drove me to pick that thing up? Music was amazing. Why not learn how to play guitar? Picked it up about age 14, somewhere in there. When we first became aware of music, I think this was 8th grade for us. You know, we were passing notes in class with names of bands like B-52s and Devo and then Sex Pistols, and this was our glomming into the music world as a weird, wonderful way. Then picking up the guitar, and that desire that was pushing me to learn how to hold those strings down. Well, it was an art. It was an art because I saw others doing it with this amazing fluidity. It's obviously learnable. So as a teenager, you go get one and you pick it up and you start trying to perfect this art. Hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months and years. I just stopped playing in live bands last year, 2024. Excuse me, strike that. You just heard me. I just played recently for my brother-in-law's 60th and his brother's 50th. So just played a gig. But barring that one-off gig we just did, I just stopped playing in multiple bands, playing the bass guitar, playing in a Rolling Stones tribute band, playing in a Tina Turner tribute band, playing in a 80s-ish, cover band. And even up to now, it's consuming a large part of hours and weeks and months and years. There's a lot of effort that has to go into upkeeping the knowledge in here of the song, playing the song, performing the song, being loose with it, not tight with it, and being just fun with it, learning the parts. I mean, it takes a lot of effort. It is an art, playing an instrument. What is this but an instrument? Prayer is an art. This is the instrument in which you play that art. That art takes how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. You come into the art of manifesting, the art of wanting your life to be better. It's going to take some practice. It's going to take some hours. It's going to take some effort. You don't just pick up a guitar and start playing. I don't care. It just doesn't happen like that. So here, this is an art. You can sit down and listen as though you heard. If you are very still, it will become audible. It does for me. I'm here to tell you, it happens. It seems natural, but I can hear my best friend telling me about his new success. I can hear the voice. If I see a homeless person and I see their face and I see that face smile, I can hear that voice. The voice is always different and it sounds exactly what my mind thinks they would sound like, just based on what I see. And then I hear that voice. I never test the voice because, as I've said, I just leave. I keep driving. I go into the Sabbath and I never see him again. So I never go back and try and test the voice and see did they sound like that. That would be trying to go in and find the seed. I know I dropped my seed somewhere. Where's it at? That'd be like going to dig up the seed and see if it's growing. No, I don't bother with that part of anything like that. That would destroy the whole thing. When it becomes audible, do you know what it is in Scripture? It's the 3rd chapter of Exodus and the 6th of Isaiah, that when the vision breaks out into speech, the presence of God is confirmed. Verses 2 and 8. Out of the burning bush that burned but consumed itself not came the voice, Moses, Moses. And then the voice began to speak to Moses. Then it was confirmed. The presence of God is confirmed. I just found out by reading that right there where that voice is coming from. Obviously, it's coming out of my imagination. And what is my imagination? What is your imagination? You can actually sit you can actually sit and listen as though you heard, and what you are hearing is going to come to pass. Now, you don't see anything. You could, if you're still enough, you'll see it. But if you will listen to something, that's implying a vision. If I heard a sentence, my mind may not be concentrated on what it implies as much as the actual sound. Or I might not move from the sound to what it implies. The potency is its implication. So what it's implying, you're actually seeing, though it may not be objective to your vision. But if all of a sudden, when you're thinking about it, you're seeing it as you think about it, if you hear the voice so that the sentence becomes audible, then the presence of God is confirmed. You hear it in your mind's your mind's ear, and then in vision, you see it. Well, when I do the imagining lovingly for another, for a friend, or for the homeless person, I see it all, and I hear them talking. It's a visual and it's an auditory. It's a video and auditory at the same time. And then touch comes in because I hug. I haven't bothered with the smell. I never even thought of it. It never struck me. I hear, well, first I see, then I see the smile, then I hear the voice, and then the action physicality of moving and hugging and in celebration. If all of a sudden when you're thinking about it and but if all of a sudden when you're thinking about it, you're seeing it as you think about it, if you hear the voice so that the sentence becomes audible, then the presence of God is confirmed. Now, it doesn't matter what the world thinks about it. If there is evidence for a thing, does it really matter what anyone thinks? If I can stand here now and listen as though I heard, and what I'm hearing has no external fact to support it, none whatsoever, well then, tomorrow or the day after or the immediate future, it becomes the objective fact. Does it really matter to me what the whole vast world will tell me about it? If they say, well, you're insane, all right, give praise for insanity of that nature. So here's a lady. She wanted this, she wanted that, and she got it. But if anyone does to you what this one tried to do to my friend Holly after she gets the ticket, from then on, ignore them. They'll stand on your feet forever, and they'll use you as a flea uses a dog and live off you beyond that point, all the time begging you to hear things for them, and they'll never themselves exercise the talent that God gave them. Do you want a fish to eat? Or do you want to learn how to fish? Now, to whom did she turn when she prayed? People say, I'll pray to Jesus. Well, where is he? We're told, call on the name of the Lord Jesus. How could you call on the name of the Lord Jesus? You do it by confessing his lordship, but you don't pray to him. Well, who is it that I confess? Well, in this lady's case, was it not her imagination? Isn't that Jesus? If we are told, by him all things were made, and without him there is nothing made that is made, John 1:3, well, she brought forth a church painting and new chandeliers and the money to pay for it. Then who did it? She didn't pray to Jesus. She listened as though she heard her husband say, Holly, isn't it wonderful? The church is painted, we have new chandeliers, and everything is paid for! Exclamation point. Well, then if this thing became a fact, as it did in 2 months, and the little boy, too small for United to employ, or American or TWA, so he's working for Eastern at their expense. They trained him. Then she tells the Jeep for the price. Then she sells the Jeep for the price he paid for it, not having used it for years. Then he has his own little car now and a home. All this by listening. Therefore, hasn't she found Jesus? Yes. She's found him because if all things are made, she knows how she made this. So she didn't really pray to Jesus. She confessed his lordship. She confessed the lordship of her own wonderful human imagination. That's Christ Jesus. That's God in man! Exclamation point. Now, when I think of Jesus in Scripture, he's defined as power. Paul tells us in his letter to the Corinthians, Christ Jesus, the power of God and the wisdom of God. 1 Corinthians 1:24. Well, what is power but effectiveness in realizing our purposes in life? If that power is the creative power that is called Christ Jesus, and I know what I did, I simply sat down and listened, and I listened until I heard, and when I heard what I wanted to hear, well, then wasn't that God in me being active? You can actually feel him, actually see him in action. Now, don't go astray and worship any other God in the world. In the Bible, immortality is not sex, it's idolatry. Immorality, not immortality. Oops. In the Bible, immorality is not sex, it's idolatry. You got to take this very easy right here. Understand this message that's coming because it's very, very important. We've been told immorality means sex. But here's Neville doing another breakdown about how to understand these terms. Get them upright, correct, not upside down, but upright. To turn to any other God in this world other than the only God, which is your own wonderful human imagination, is idolatry. Now, the way I would say this also is in here is where he is. That's the God you turn to when you pray. to turn to any god out here, that's idolatry. It isn't about morality. And this is so simple to fix. Stop looking at the world, your reflection, and saying that that's it that did it, because it's not. It's in here that did it. It's in here. You can call it, Neville calls it the fourth dimension. Whatever. The words don't matter. Just know it's in here, your own wonderful human imagination. So, in this art of learning how to pray, Lord, teach us to pray. He gave them no formula other than the Lord's Prayer. That's not something which you repeat idly with words. That's something you contemplate. That's the Lord's Prayer. Our Father. It's an established fact that we all have one Father, our Father. We can stop right there. Don't forget Genesis. Let us make man in our image. Our Father. If I said that the fatherhood of God is universal, then I'm also establishing the fact that the brotherhood of man is. You can't have one father of all and not have all brothers. So that's not something you utter in words. That prayer is simply to sit down and simply extract its meaning. That is to contemplate. But in this frame, you can use the sense of touch, the sense of taste, the sense of, smell, the sense of sight. In her case, because she's trained as an operator, she uses the sense of hearing. And so, were she here tonight, I would ask anyone to turn to her. She'll do it quickly and easily. It doesn't cost her anything. She doesn't charge for it, and she's a simple, perfectly wonderful lady who knows how to tune in, and she can hear what she wants to hear. As she said to me in the letter, why, Neville, it's the easiest thing in the world if one would only listen until they hear it. I completely, totally agree. And if you really believe you're going to hear it, you'll hear it. It will come as an audible sound and be exactly as you have predetermined it. And not just a sound, it will be the sound of the one who asked it of you. It will be unique. After you've heard it, who could disturb you? So here, when he was asked, teach me how to pray, then he tells the parable that shows you persistency. So you sit down, you're interrupted. All right, go back to it. That shows, you're interrupted again. Go back to it. Eventually, in just a matter of moments, you'll be able to become so still you will hear what you want to hear. Now, this happens to me at the traffic light. I'm listening to Neville. My headphones aren't here, but I'm listening, and I got my headphones in, and I see the person, and I go, okay, it's my time, it's my duty. I got to press pause on my little button on my Beats headphones, and then or I turn it off on the radio, depending on which car I'm in, and I stop the interruption. Let the moment come. When I'm going to see the smile, then I'm going to hear the audible. We're talking about something right here. It's called prayer. This is the art of the way I apply it. So I'm echoing what she's saying to Neville. I see the smile with these. I hear the celebratory speech, literally. And then when the celebration is reaching an apex, the high five, the hug, all of it goes at the same moment. Very, very quickly. Eventually, I'm going to repeat the sentence. Eventually, in just a matter of moments, you'll be able to become so still you will hear what you want to hear. Well, if you are interrupted and interrupted. Don't give up. You mustn't give up. You simply listen until you actually hear what you want to hear. If to you seeing is easier than hearing, well, then use the sense of sight. Because you have a body that's because you have a body that's an inlet to the soul. We have no body distinct from the soul. That called body is a portion of the soul discerned by the five senses, the chief inlets of the soul in this age. So it's almost like a something you exude, this thing called body. But we think we are it. No, it's simply a portion of the soul. You are the soul. Remember, I've died in dreams and visions too many times to count. And each and every time I have been in that experience in a vision or a dream, I'm still present. So that says to me what he just said. My soul is still present. The garment that I'm wearing in that dream or vision that has transitioned, died, whatever, I'm still there every single time. So my soul is present. As he just said, we exude this body, this garment. That should be, to a large percentage of you, very, very comforting. So here, after you leave this night and you go home, sit down and try it. Doesn't cost you a thing. And without consent of one, if you know a person's voice, just listen to it and try what she did. If you can't quite recall it, call them up and have them tell you what they would like to have in this world as though they had it. You know what's interesting here is that when you're talking to a friend and you ask them, what do you want? You just throw that in there. Even if it's something you wouldn't normally say, just toss it in there and see what happens. You'll be pretty surprised at what you hear. Because not everybody's asking each other, what do you want? So when someone is asked it, they feel like they're on stage and they're like, oh, and they really become expressive. It's very impressive to do and then see the reaction because it usually is a flowering of what they really want. Even if you don't normally talk like that, just try it. You'll be pretty surprised. I'm going to repeat. If you can't quite recall it, their voice, call them up and have them tell you what they would like to have in this world as though they had it. Make them phrase it so that they are telling you they have it. And then you hang up. In this case, it's the last thing you hear. You hear the voice, and then you sit down, and then you listen to the same thing and affirm it. Now, I haven't tried this yet. I'm going to. They said it, and now you hear it on the inside. When you hear it on the inside, the thing is done! Exclamation point. And you don't have to make any effort to make it so. This so-called daily praying, blank space, for the same thing, pray daily. As he said, in all things, pray. So he told them a parable that they should always pray and never grow weary of praying. But praying is in this simple, simple way. It's not going up the stairs on your knees or getting down and crossing yourself before some cross or saying any prayers someone wrote for you. What would you do? You go to church and the minister will say, I will lead you in prayer. Well, every word is disturbance of what you want to hear. You go into the silence, you hear what you want to hear. How can you hear some if a minister is leading you apart and 1,000 people on the outside and 1,000 different desires in this world. They all have something different. And he's leading a word prayer that he wrote. That's not praying. So when you pray, you're told, go within, shut the door, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Matthew 6:6. So you go within, you close the door of the senses. These are a major part of the senses. Major. We put a lot of stock in these two things. Shut the door. And then inwardly, you tune in and listen. I know what fantastic results one can get by this simple method. So I can't tell you what is your best. Maybe sight is better than hearing, but I find hearing very simple. No two voices are alike. They may seem to be alike, but they're not really. They are as distinct as your odor. No two people in the world. There are 3.5 billion of us, and we don't have the same odor, or the bloodhound couldn't find us. We don't have the same thumbprint. We don't have the same sound to our voice, even though it sounds to those not attuned to be alike. I presume that sitting here, if I said that a Chinese is speaking to the average untrained ear in the Chinese tongue, all Chinese would sound alike. But to the Chinese trained in his tongue, no two would be alike. So I dare say to them, all Americans sound alike, and yet no two really sound alike. I mean, that's such an amazing idea and example right there. You can think of every one of your friends, of your family, and listen to each one of them in your mind right now, and you know not one of them, not any of them sound alike as another. None of them. All your nieces, all your nephews, all your uncles and aunts and brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and daughters and sons, all of them, no two voices sound alike. So this becomes easier because now that you know that, you can zero in on who it is you're imagining lovingly for. You may think, well, I don't tell you it's the easiest thing in the world, but practice will make it easier. It's an art, and all arts require a good method. It must be a careful method, and then persistency in practice. You're going to practice and practice daily. What did I write down? I wrote down our daily practice right here on this paper. That was AM sats, midday sats, PM sats, AM revision, midday revision, PM revision, daily practice. Where's your calendar? You're going to practice and practice daily. You can help someone without their consent. You know that. As he wrote it, you can help someone without their consent, you know. You don't have to wait for someone to ask you to help them. If you are aware of their distress or their need, you can do it if you know their voice or what they look like. Construct a scene implying the fulfillment of their dream and see it clearly. But when speech breaks out in vision, then it's done. That's automatic. Speech breaks out in vision. So for me, it starts in vision, then I hear the voice. Because when I see that person's face, then I can see the smile, then I hear the voice. It's almost simultaneous, but it's the vision where mine starts. He's saying, but when speech breaks out in vision, then it's done. That's automatic. As told us in that wonderful story where he comes and sees the Lord on the throne and the seraphim behind him. And then the Lord speaks and said, whom will I send? Isaiah says, send me. So he sends him, but he heard the voice before he was sent. Well, the same thing as this. You will hear the voice. As you hear it, whose voice did you hear? You heard the friend's voice. You heard it all on the inside. So, all that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. So the whole vast world of 3.5 billion, how could you crowd them into one man? But they are that. You single out from your own being the one you're going to help, and you help him. Here he's projected on the screen of space, and he seems so completely independent of your perception of him. Here, he's out there actually becoming all the things you heard for him. I am convinced in my own case that my mother had, in some strange way, knowledge of this. Because she always would go, blank space, and she would sit alone when she darned our socks. The sock reminded her of the one who wore it, and she would talk to herself, but she was talking to her son. Actually, as she darned that sock, she was building in her own mind's eye the future she wanted for that son. Brilliant. Brilliant. They all became successful. I'm quite sure if one could trace their success to the source, it would go all the way back to their mother, where she, instead of criticizing them and comparing them in some strange way to neighbors, she never compared us to any neighbor, not for one moment. If she did, she never found us wanting. That was mother. But to ourselves, she would always build it up, and she built it up in her own mind's eye, confident that time would take care of it, and each one would mold itself right into her image of that child. And eventually, they all did. Wow. If you're a mother, take note. So in learning to pray, don't commit to memory any prayer. It doesn't work. Talking about, again, our Father who art in blah, blah, blah. It's for contemplation, not for actual meditation, prayer. It's for meditation, but not for praying for somebody. When you're imagining lovingly for another, that prayer isn't the prayer. The prayer is hearing them tell you about their new success. That's prayer. But take your own wonderful soul, which is only a portion of it, the 5 senses, and these are the chief inlets of this age. Well, think sense. You may be given to color, given to pictures, and the sense of sight may be easier for you. Some can think of someone and see them vividly in their mind's eye. This lady, she thinks of them, she hears them. Another one can touch. No two handshakes are alike. You take a hand, some give you just the fingertips. A big strapping man, and you put the hand out, he gives you this. Well, forever you think of him in terms of that. You know, that kind of weak handshake, that kind of like this kind of thing. There's something about that handshake. Others go right in and grip you, a good firm handshake. Others almost take your hand away. They want to show you how strong they are or how they feel, but that's another kind of shake. I can think right now, I had a friend come over yesterday, and when we greeted, we shook hands in a very traditional manner, none of this other business, elbows and butts, none of that. We just shook hands. Then when he was leaving, he stayed for an hour and a half, 90 minutes. We had a long conversation. And then when he left, we shook hands. Firm, all the way in, handshake. I know exactly what that feels like right here in my imagination. I know what that feels like. Now, I have not used what he's saying here before in the handshake. I use high fives and hugs, but I'm now going to consider that handshake. When we go into the silence shortly, I'm going to be using a prayer with that specific person and that specific handshake. And then I will report in a future video on what I am imagining. But for now, back to it. But if you know and associate with any one person, you can do that and touch them. That's again in Genesis the 27th, and so he came close and received the blessing through touch. He put these things on his hands, a hair. He has a smooth skinned lad, and he took the hair of a goat and wrapped it upon his hand and his neck, so when he came to his father, he would deceive the father into believing he was Esau. For the blessing belonged to Esau. As he came close, the father said, "Come closer still, my son, that I may touch you. I can't see." The father was blind. So here Isaac is blind. So Jacob comes very, very close, and he's now clothed as his brother would be clothed. And he receives the blessing that belonged to his brother through the sense of touch. So you can take something, if you know that sense of touch, and bring them very, very close and touch them. Feel the joy of their good fortune. You aren't robbing yourself by feeling the joy of another. As you're told in the story of Job, when Job prayed for his friends, his own captivity was lifted. We can learn so much right in that one sentence. So you don't have to be concerned about giving yourself a little time for your own prayers for self. Your prayer for another is your prayer for self. Because in the final analysis, there is no other. You can study the Seth books until the cows come home. All 48 of them, somewhere in that neighborhood. You can study all these Neville lectures. I don't even know how many hundreds. There's hundreds. Every single one of them until the cows come home. And someday you're going to get to this place where you know this one sentence. Your prayer for another is your prayer for self. This is the lesson of Job. Because in the final analysis, there is no other. You will get there. Everything is you pushed out. That's the hint. So if all this reflection is you pushed out, then it's just you. In the beginning, middle, and end, it's just you, and it's always only ever been you. So what are you going to do with this new opportunity now that you know it's all you? All these battles in the outside is you. Now you know that. Now you're at the opportune moment to make a new definition of you. This is a very practical lecture. This whole vast world is one being, fragmented, and that one being is yourself. The whole vast world. And this is another reason I say you be careful what you pay your attention to. Get it? Pay attention, not receive attention. But what you're giving your attention to is creating it in that moment. It isn't another's crafty thumbnail on a video trying to convince you to look at it. You're creating it in the moment. Then perceiving your creation. This is discussed in the movie Inception, very brief little point when he's describing to the gal about dreams and perceptions. And it's also described in The Nature of Personal Reality, Seth's second book. The one book everybody would say, a lot of people who study Seth say if they had to take one book to an island, it would be The Nature of Personal Reality. In that book, Seth describes this concept of perception very, very wonderfully, where you're seeing yourself from the other spot. The whole vast world is one being fragmented, and that one being is yourself. The whole vast world. It doesn't make sense. How can this whole vast world be contained within one being? And yet someday you'll have the vision and you will see it. It isn't words. I mean, I'm telling you words to describe it, but it isn't words. You'll sit here one day, not here, you'll sit and you'll sense it. It's all you pushed out. I have seen it so vividly, so clearly. At a distance, it seemed like one man, and as you approached, multiple nations, but unnumbered nations in one man. I saw it so vividly one night when I was with Blake, and he told me to lean back and fall. I fell like some meteor through space, and when I settled and came to a stop, there in the distance was this wonderful being. The heart was like living ruby. The whole being was alive, but it seemed like one being. As I approached it and I got nearer and nearer, here, multitudes of people, all contained in one man. I saw it so vividly one night when I was with Blake and he told me to lean back and fall. Now, for those of you versed in lucid dreaming or remembering your dreams or coming awake in your dreams, or those who have had out of bodies or are about to embark on having out of bodies, the lean back and fall is another way you go into an out of body. So I believe Neville in this discussion right here is saying that he's gone dreaming with Blake and received instruction from Blake how to dive into an out of body. Because when I've been dreaming or when I've been asleep and I go in out of body, a lot of times it's falling back. Even though I'm already supine, I'm still going to be falling back even more. And then at light speed traveling, I felt like some meteor through space, which is exactly what it's like. Exactly what it's like. My friend who is here tonight, that vision of his looking down on a prone man, and the prone man contained every conceivable thing that man could do. You couldn't conceive of a situation that was not already worked out in detail in that prone man and his desire to come down and identify with the man in that vast world of men. They're all contained in one man. He came down, identified, and played his part here in this world that's fragmented. So here tonight, if you treat it seriously, your fortune is in your hands. If you treat it seriously. This lecture is an answer to the recent poll of what's most important to you: love, health, wealth, freedom. Well, so far, 20-something votes, I think 27 votes, wealth has come out on top, over 50%. This lecture is the answer to that poll. Literally. I didn't plan this. I haven't read a lecture for several days, but this is the answer to that specific poll. For those of you who like the long form and who know that deeper learning takes a little more time, you can't learn this in a this isn't a short lesson. This is a life lesson here. Wealth is a life lesson. Health is a life lesson. Love is life's lesson, in my humble opinion. So here tonight, if you treat it seriously, your fortune is in your hands. If you treat it seriously, you could go out and say, this is stupid. It doesn't make sense. That isn't religion. It isn't spiritual. Well, then that's your choice. You wouldn't be here in the video still if that's your position, by the way. I can't force it on you. I can just offer it. I acquaint you with God's law and leave you to your choice and its risks. Only as you succeed, don't let someone stand upon your back and simply make you the goat. That if they don't get what they want, you have failed. Don't even think of doing that baloney. You can tell them the principle and leave them entirely to themselves, that they in turn may begin to exercise the talent within themselves. I couldn't make a better response to that poll than this lecture. I couldn't do it, but Neville's doing it for me right now, literally. It's no coincidence that there was a big pause before this lecture, because it is answering that poll. You know the story of the talents. He came back, called for the one who had 5. The one who had 5 had multiplied it because of use. And he commended him and said, keep all 10. The one who had 2, all right, he had doubled his 2 by use, and he was highly commended and allowed to keep it. But the one who was given 1 was afraid to test it, and he buried it. When he heard he had buried his talent, he was condemned and cast out, and the talent he received was taken from him and given to the one who had the most. So it's entirely up to us whether we use the talent or we don't use it. So I'm not teaching some moral law here. I think everyone who comes here I think everyone who comes here should have acquired some kind of ethical code long before they came here. You should have acquired it at your mother's knee. So I'm not to acquaint you with any moral code whatsoever. I leave you to your choice. So you can simply know what you want in this world for your friend and then attack it in this manner. She told me some perfectly marvelous ones. But that last one, $280, and to ball her out for only $280, she wanted the $150,000. Here is one. She said, my brother had a small taxi business, and about 3 weeks before this thing happened, he said to me, you know, I have a strange feeling, that if I don't sell or give it away, something's going to happen to me. Well, he didn't. He's in Bakersfield. So 2 weeks later, some litigation with a man and a woman in his cab. So the day of the trial, she's working in her office with the telephone company, and all day long she was thinking of him, seeing that he's free, released. She called out at 4, and they said he's in court. That seemed kind of late to her. She called a little while later, still in court. She got into her car and drove to Bakersfield. When she got there at this very late hour, he's still in court. Here it is, 10:30. So she went in and saw the brother, and she said, you can't go into the jury room, but you can send your mind in there. You can't go in, but you can send your mind in, and you can tell them to release me. I am released. I am free. Sit down here and go into that jury room, and you tell them, I am free. I am released. Then she said, in my purse, I had a huge, big white envelope. So I took it out with a pencil, and I said, you sit right down here now and write as many times as you can, I am free. I am released. Keep on writing it. Keep on writing it. At 5 minutes after 12, they brought in the verdict. He was released. He was freed. Now, you don't give me the nature of the trial, why he was on trial, why they brought the action against him. She just gave me the facts. Excuse me, if I said it differently. Now, she did not give me the nature of the trial, why he was on trial, why they brought the action against him. She just gave me the facts, that here he was. He had this premonition that something would happen if he didn't sell his small taxi business. He didn't sell. And 2 weeks later, he's litigating with this man and a woman. While the jury was locked up, she drove all the way to Bakersfield and told the story. You can't go in there physically, but you can go in there in your mind. Go right in and proclaim, I am free, I am released. And then you sit here and you write it over and over and over and fill this envelope with that statement, I am free, I am released. At 5 minutes after 12 at night, 12:05 a.m., the jury came out and he was free, released. These stories are all true. I know this lady well, and this is an amusing part of it. I gave her away. And this little line, a reception after the wedding, and this lady came forward and she came to me and said, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, did you see the service?" She said, "Yes." I said, "I am the bride's father." She looked at me as though I were completely insane. I learned afterwards the lady who asked me was the bride's sister. The sister had not seen the bridegroom, had not seen none of this crowd that came. Well, I'm not, blank space. Weddings are always gay. So she came forward. I said, "You saw the wedding, didn't you?" "Yes." "Well, I'm the bride's father." And what a strange look on her face. She's in an insane asylum. Oh boy. Now, this lady knows this thing well enough to know how to do it. Although the man's a perfectly marvelous fellow, he hasn't a chance. Not a chance. Because he doesn't know how to work the law. She does. She made up her mind. That's it. And he was hooked. He hasn't a chance. Think about what he just said. But he's divinely happy now. He's very happy. Now let us go into the silence and apply it right now. If you want to, you can apply the breathing technique where we come in with 3 breaths and we at the apex of the third, and you open your eyes and you let the light into the subject of your imagining. There's the first one. You don't have to do this. Someone asked in the comments and it was a good question. It's one of Neville's techniques. There's a second one. At the top of the third one, then you can open your eyes and see the image in reality on the image of your 3D space. Here we go. Either way you want to do that, that is fine. Homework is 2 full minutes of that in your imagining, doing your handshake, doing your high five, doing your hug. Question, in the Bible, blank space, does this mean inner talking? Answer, inner talking, inner vision, inner touch. Question, the constant all the time? Answer, you're doing it anyway, but you're doing it unknowingly. And this is what I say all the time. We're already doing this. Every single moment of every single day, we're doing this already. The purpose of me and my presence and this channel is to help get us to the point of complete understanding that we're already doing it. But we want to be in the understanding of how we're consciously doing it and then apply it towards what we want to experience versus what we think is being cast at us. We learn it's coming from us. Then we learn that what we can send can be different and experience different things like abundance, like happiness, healthiness, wealthiness, love, freedom, power, fame, fortune, whatever. You're doing it anyway, but you're doing it unknowingly. A man walks the street, he's not alone, he's always imagining something and dwelling on something. Most of the time, he's dwelling on things he doesn't like and tries to resolve them that way by argument, mental arguments. If everyone really expressed what he's imagining outwardly, you would know the whole vast world's insane. But we are a little bit curtailed by society. We don't want to appear in the eyes of others as a fool, and so we restrain what we normally would be outside the expression. Occasionally, a man passes by and doesn't care, and he's sawing the atmosphere, talking to himself. But everyone is talking to himself, only they are more restrained, but talking to himself. We've all seen it. You see somebody walking down the sidewalk, carrying on a very elaborate, expressive conversation. And sometimes, a lot of times, seems very angry. They're getting it off their chest. A lot of people restrain that outward expression and do it in here anyway. Just because they're not doing it expressively, physically, doesn't mean they're not doing it inwardly, mentally. It's happening by all of us all the time. It's called mental diets, inner talking. Like you just said, look in the morning's paper. If there is any good news in it, they bury it in the very last page. I saw TV before I came out. Everyone repeated the same things, all holdups and murders. That seems to appeal to men. Who's dead? That comes right out. But you can't stop it. You're a talking being. You're talking to yourself all the time. The thing is to control it. If you can control it, allow only those things to come in, like Holly when she does some work for someone else. You voice it, all right? You voice it, but now turn it around. Rearrange the furniture of the mind. The furniture was set this way, but I want so-and-so. Rearrange the furniture. I have so-and-so. Not but I want, I have. Same furniture, same words, regrouped. She said, I want to get married in Las Vegas. All right, turn that around. I went to Las Vegas and I married the most wonderful man. Same words, rearranged, meaning something entirely different. Question, can one listen to himself or her own self saying just what he or she wants for herself as effectively as you would were you listening for someone else? Answer, you can. Certainly you can. And one should be extremely discreet in this world. You don't go into a restaurant and say, bring me a dinner, bring me a menu, and you go through the entire list and you may settle for a hamburger, but you want everything they have to offer, and then you go through the entire list and you pick out what you want. You don't go in and say, give me a tie. Let me see what you have. And you pick out a tie from maybe 100 ties. But you have to be discriminating in this world, and so you single out what you want in this world, not what others think you should have. Let no one tell you God knows best. Well, who is he? Didn't he become me? When he became me, he gave me the power to discriminate. And he speaks to me through the language of desire. And he made me not for frustration, but for satisfaction. So take my desire, which is simply looking at and looking towards what I want, now rearrange it so I look from it. Remember also what the definition of the word prayer is. In the concordance, Strong's, it's defined as motion towards, accession to, nearness at or in the vicinity of. You'll find this very, very practical. And share with me the results. Don't give me anything, just share with me the results as this lady did. So Paul tells us in Galatians, let him who teaches, or rather, let him who was taught the word, share all good things with him who teaches. 6:6. Paul wasn't looking for one penny. Nothing of this world's goods, but do share with him the results of your use of the principle, that he, in turn, can encourage the faith of others by telling their story. It's working anyway. Question, I was thinking, wouldn't we all be physically beautiful if we were praying unceasingly of the beautiful thoughts, the beautiful things that we'd be giving one another and would be expressing on our face? My mother used to say, what you are speaks so loud, I can't hear what you say. The expression that comes on your face, the expression that comes on your face, or I know must come on mine when I'm thinking of something really wonderful that has happened to some friend of mine is simply beautiful. Great question. Answer. Well, here in this wonderful world of ours, take the English tongue, the most liquid tongue in the world, the richest tongue in the world, has borrowed from all tongues with a far greater vocabulary than any other tongue. And yet, to express the emotion you've just expressed, we only have one little word, and it's not in use to express it. Empathy. If I say I empathize with you, the average person will say, what's he talking about? What is he talking about? So strange. This is 1965. That word was ne'er on anybody's tongue or mind. Today, empathy is very much a common word. Yet if I say I sympathize, I have compassion for you, I pity you, well, we have hundreds of words to express that emotion, and only one little word to express rejoicing in the good fortune of another. One little word to express rejoicing in the good fortune of another. So I just found the word that I'm doing when I'm on the off ramp and I'm seeing the person with the sign that says anything will help, and I rejoice in the good fortune of that other. It's empathy. I empathize with their new success. The word, because it's not used, because no one rejoices, really rejoices, in the good fortune of another, they're envious. But they sympathize. Oh, do they sympathize? Let a next door neighbor have some injury or some misfortune, the whole neighborhood rushes in to sympathize. Let it be known that their next door neighbor just came into a fortune. Why should she get it? I know what she's done in the past. I know what she's done. I know what she's capable of doing. So she gets it. Where is the justice in the world, they'll say. And so we don't exercise that emotion of rejoicing in the good fortune of others, but oh, sympathy, we must wallow in it. Well, if there aren't any more questions, our next meeting is Tuesday because Sunday is Advent. My subject will be Advent. The great season begins this Sunday called Andrew's birthday. He is the first disciple, the first one to be told the law. So you have 4 Sundays, 4 great events leading up to the fullness of the image. So Tuesday, Advent. Until Tuesday. This was the answer to our prayer. Our prayer was the last poll. What is most important to you right now? Relationship, love, health, or wealth, or freedom? Wealth came in, I think, I looked today, it was at 55%, more than half of the votes. This is the answer to that poll. Teach Us to Pray, November 26, 1965. We're going to see you in the next one.